Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you, those of you that have braved our first really cold weather to join us here at our December board meeting. Our board has been hard at work after completing the budget process for the coming year and finalizing a ballot proposal to the membership seeking approval for funding for the projects that our committees have been working on all year. They have proposed these projects that will improve existing amenities for the most part, create one new facility sought by a growing segment of the membership as well. While the board is unanimous in its support for these projects, it is still working on a plan for project prioritization, funding, and ballot approval. We, or rather I, am not sure how the results of the fire EMS election will affect this next ballot, but the results of that election will be determined on Saturday. On behalf of the entire board, I would like to express my thanks to all our employees for their loyalty, their hard work, and dedication to our community, and wish them all a happy holiday season. At the current time, our member fund for employee Christmas bonuses has reached over $20,000 and will be distributed to them soon. And I wish all of you here and employee, member, and resident of Pecan Plantation a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And now on to the business of the association. So second order of business actually is our open session. We have no cards for presentations. I will give we have 22 people here that I counted, and give you an opportunity if there's anyone here that has anything you wish to say. We give you 3 minutes. And seeing no requests, then we'll move on. So item number 3 in our agenda are the minutes of the previous meeting, and I would entertain the motion for approval.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Approval of the minutes of the November 2nd meeting. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? And now for the financial report. For those of you in the audience, there are copies of that report. For those of you that want to do homework and look through those long documents, but they're at the back at the table there. And now I'll turn this over to our treasurer, Dick Kite.
Thank you, sir. Okay, this is the end of October's financials, which is the end of our fiscal year. And general fund operations, we get a total revenue during the month of October of $557,000, expenses of $748 for a deficit of $191,000. And you, like me, wonder, well, why do we have such a large deficit? It's this time of the year that we have to pay out the penalties to the government for our lack of a employee health care. And so for the last 3 years, we've been setting aside money to go to the government, and this reflects that set aside. We have not yet paid it. They have not figured out how to bill us and how to do that, so we have 3 years of accumulation that we're working with now. But that's the difference. What is it, Michael, about $150,000 a year? 140. So it's roughly $140,000 that we pay to the government for health care. Okay, at the end of the fiscal year, those monthly revenues add up to $6.7 million. Total expenses added up to $6.6 for a gain of $127,000 to the bottom line. Here again, we see total revenue for the month, $557,000. Cost of sales was $71,000. We came out to a gross revenue of $485,000, and we subtract labor from that, other expenses, total cost of operations for the month, $748,000, roughly $750,000, and then you see our deficit of $191,000. That compares to the budget, and you can see the variances on the right. This is the difference between the month of October this year and the month of October last year. And we are slowly growing as we gain members, so our costs are going up, our revenues are going up slightly, but that explains the differences between this year and last year. All right, on the year-to-date, again, we talked briefly about $6.7 million for a total revenue, cost of sales of $943,000, a gross of $5.8 million. We subtract a cost of labor of $3.7, other expenses of just under $2 million. So our total cost was $6.6, and we came out $129,000 ahead. And you can see how we budgeted. We were within $2,400 of budget, a variance between year-to-date and budget of $127,000, and compare that with last year, and you can see the differences between this year and last year. Okay, operating revenues, again, we've talked about this number, 6.7 several times already. Costs of goods sold of $943,000. Gross operating profit, 5.8. From that, you take labor of 3.7, other operating expenses, 1.9, and a net income before depreciation of $129,000, leaving us with a cash balance of just over $1 million. And we'll see how that figures in here. Here's our capital reserve fund. We began with $1.798 million. We deposited 1.1. We spent $718,000, and we have an ending cash balance of $2.2 million. The Road and Drainage Fund began October with $774. We deposited, this is year-to-date, I'm sorry. We began with $774. We deposited $688,000. We spent $243, and we have $1.2 million left. I'm going to come to a summary of this. Here's a summary of the cash balance on all the different accounts. The general operating fund has just a shade over $1 million. The capital reserve fund has 2.2, and the road and drainage fund has 1.2. So right now, in the bank, the snapshot of our checking accounts and our savings accounts and investments comes to $4.5 million. Now keep in mind that's a snapshot. It's just like your home finances. You have bills to pay on a regular basis. There's a couple of big ones in here. We talked about the medical payments to the government of $140,000 a year for the last 3 years. That $420,000 is in here and needs to come out to the government. We have earmarked it that it's coming out, but it's still there. The Road and Drainage Fund started the year with roughly, if I remember right, around $1 million. And those two projects we did, the front gate road and the drainage deal on Westover, those two totaled around $750,000. Not all of that money has been paid out yet. When we began the fiscal year, we thought we were going to end with a balance in the Road and Drainage Fund of about $400,000. So when we finish paying out the money for the Westover project, there's going to be roughly $750,000 left in this account. The reason it's up from the $400,000 number is we've got new members coming on board, and we get those new member fees to add to the Road and Drainage Fund. And somewhere in here we talked about the number of members, and we're up to 3,050 now, I believe.
Correct.
Didn't we start the year with like right at 3,000?
3,005.
3,005. Okay, so we picked up 45 members this year. There's the 3,050 number in the upper left. This is how your monthly HOA fee breaks out. For each member, it's $90 to the general fund each month, $8 to the capital reserve fund, road and drainage of $19. You can see the footnote that in 2024, 10 of that 19 goes away. Trash pickup is $14 per lot, EMS contribution of 10 for a total of $141.93. Does that generate any questions from anybody?
Would you say we're in the financial
Hope you're breaking up well, but yes, I think we're in very good financial condition.
I think it was budgeted that we would have a net profit of $2,450, but in reality, we exceeded that net budget amount by $127,000. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. I'm going to go into the departmental performances for the month and for year to date. So these on the left are all of our departments, and let's see how we did for the month of October. Security revenues were down a little bit, and our labor expenses were up a little bit above budget. So if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the budget and then the variance amounts. Obviously, brackets are negative variances, and the black are positive variances. Golf revenues were very strong this month. We did spend some money on the golf course, some much-needed agronomy practices. So although we spent less on labor, we're having continued difficulty in finding staff in the golf course. We're putting the money back into the golf course through agronomy practices throughout the year. So we had to miss the plan because of that of $11,272. Roads and grounds, total revenues of $15,000 this year. Road maintenance fees were down a little bit. Labor was also up a little bit this month. As were expenses, we purchased quite a lot of road repair material and building repair material. And so we had a miss in roads and grounds of $12,646. Sports and recreation, we had a missed plan of $2,700, mainly due to expenses, due to all the functions down at the PAC. We had to purchase a lot of Halloween expenses for the big party down there in October. Facilities maintenance, labor, 7,100 hours. We're finally up to a full staff in our facilities maintenance department, which we're very pleased, and will show some great dividends through the clubhouse and in all our facilities. Expenses, we did have quite a lot of building and maintenance repairs this month, and so we did have a missed budget of $11,000, but for much needed facilities maintenance repairs. Food and beverage, another good month in food and beverage, $110,000 in total revenue. You can see the cost of goods sold there, labor, $54,000. We did have some expenses that we had to buy some china, glass, and silver after we expense what was inventoried. We take an inventory of our china, glass, and silver at the beginning of the year, and inventory at the end of the year, and all the breakage has to be written off in the last month of the year, so that's why our expenses were a little high in food and beverage. The loss was $24,000 on a budget to lose $13,000 for a variance of $11,686. Well, I'm sorry, food and beverage, actually, let me repeat myself, food and beverage loss was planned to be $7,200 loss, and we only actually lost $9,000 was the budget. We actually lost $7,200, so that was a positive variance. So food and beverage continues to improve, and you'll see when we get to the next slide just how much revenue food and beverage produced this year. Communications, ad revenues were a little bit sluggish again this month, so that's kind of been a trend. We got a little overzealous with our budget on ad revenue. This year we're not able to achieve that. But the rest of our numbers were in line. We did have some expenses. We had to buy some IT equipment, and so we had to miss the plan of $2,618. Then, although we had a missed plan, was up to 38.2% occupancy this month, so we were rather busy. We do have an extra housekeeper, so we have labor increases, went up to $17,000. Budget of $2,900, and so we had a negative variance of $4,897. Marina had a good month, $23,000 in sales. So you can see that's a positive number, a big $212 on a plan to lose $676. So the Marina actually was at break even to the tune of $212, 888 positive variance to plan. Member services, a little bit higher than our budget, just $261 ahead of our plan. In the stables, we've gone through the year where we had 17 to 20 horses. We're now at 20 again. That's the full stables, and so we spent a little bit more on the expense side for feed. So the net income loss was only $305 on a budget to make $405, $710 variance to plan. And so total cost, you can see, income $207,384 negative, on a budget of $158,437 for a negative variance of $48,947. Let's look at our year-to-date numbers. First of all, security revenues and security, they were down a little bit this year. Labor, we spent nearly $500,000 on security labor. When you compare the budget to the income, we had a missed plan in our security department of $23,845. Golf had a great year, really nice weather, helped the golf department. Did over we did $212,000 in merchandise sales this year. Great job by Bobby and the pro shop staff. Produced $567,000 in total golf revenue. Take away all the expenses, and the total was $418,000 in golf loss on a plan to lose $438,000. So golf had a positive $19,000 year-to-date number. Roads and grounds, we were a little short this year on new housing starts. We had 53 for the year on a budget of 58, so our revenues were down a little bit. And we did spend our budget on our labor and our expenses. And so when it was all said and done, we had just a small missed plan of $3,461. Also, we had 262 property transfers this year, and that is the most that we've ever had in the association. So 262 homes exchanged hands this year. So and homes are selling very, very rapidly in pecan plantation and for quite a lot per square footage. Sports and rec, total revenue of $48,000. You can see the labor there. And the expenses, we did exceed our plan. A lot of that was the labor. It took about 6 months to find somebody to take care of the pack, 35 acres. So we have about a half a year of labor that would have been higher. But needless to say, the variance is $16,752 positive in our sports and rec department. Facilities maintenance, because we were short-staffed, not because we wanted to spend less on facilities maintenance. We actually needed to spend more, just didn't have the staff. So we had a positive $8,570 positive variance due to the fact that we went most of the year with just one person in our facilities maintenance staff.
And how are we doing now?
We have 3 now, so we're fully staffed. Food and beverage revenue, $839,000. On a cost of goods sold of $355, and I'm not sure why that year-to-date number is so low, but anyway, food and beverage income loss $4,635 on a budget of $18,955 for a variance of $14,320. Communications, as I said, our communications revenues were down because of our ad revenue all year long. Because of that, we had a $7,264 missed to plan. Our in revenue is $77,000. We did have a positive variance to plan of $3,776 in our in. Marina, $147,805 total revenue for the year. And when it's all said and done, compared to the budget, negative $25,61 year-to-date. Member services, $30,000. That was due to election expenses and the volunteer lunching, being a little bit more than we anticipated, $6,100 missed to plan. And our stables operation, that is a positive number, $1,800, $1,822 on a plan of $388 for a positive variance of $1,434. When you look at our total payroll, We talked about a payroll for this month, $557,000 on a budget of $533, so positive variance of $23,581. And our cost of labor, $451,000, small variance to plan, negative $3,200. And you can see it compared to prior year, the variances are very close to prior year. Total revenues, that is the highest revenues in the history of the association, all the way up to $6.7 million on a budget of $6.6, $92,000 ahead of budget this year, so that was good to see. Departments performed very well, and $128,000 over prior year numbers, or prior year revenues. Cost of labor, taxes and benefits, $3.7 million on a plan of $3.755, so we spent $40,000 less than our budget, and $35,000 less than prior year. Now let's take a look at allocation. This is when we allocate our G&A costs out to the departments to see what the net effect of that would be. And on the far right, if you can see the indirect overhead costs, and then the net cost when you add the overhead and the net cost together. And then on the right-hand column, that is the cost of each member. $90.75 goes to operations out of everybody's assessment every month. And if you add all those numbers up on the right, that would equal $90.75. So that is how much each individual amenity cost the members for the month of October. So you can see security costs $24.39, golf $34, and then you can see roads and grounds, and it goes all the way down. Food and beverage $19.54, all the way down to the stables, just $1.56. So as Treasurer mentioned earlier, member assessments, $276,000. Add that to our fees, and we had net surplus or deficit of $191,256. Our year-to-date numbers, I think we had an incorrect screen. I just want to point out a couple things. First of all, this is through the year, so the far right column would be how much that amenity theoretically would cost you if we allocated out all the G&A expenses for the whole year. Food and beverage, I think we did have a screen that was incorrect, but our total food and beverage revenues this year were $1.446 million, also a record. And you can see that it is a positive number of $1,174. So that is great performance. Congratulations to John and the entire food and beverage team and the chef and his team. There you can see, if you look at, that's in descending order, so that's what the cost of each amenity will cost us on a yearly basis. And you can see the bottom line is member assessments, $3.2 million for the year. Add that with our fees of $385,000. And our net surplus for the year is $129,787. Quite a busy year for our capital expenditures. You can see these are all the capital expenditures that were completed for the year. There's just campground and grills and tables will be the last thing to be installed. Everything else has been completed. Telephone system and towers, we went live on our telephone system a couple weeks ago, so we're finalizing that project, still tweaking a couple things to make it optimize the system, but we're working on that. The West Circle, we talked to the welder today, and he is still working on the trellis at the West Circle. He let us know that he's an artist, and it takes time. So he's not a welder, he's an artist. So he's taking a little bit extra time. Press shop and 19th hole designs, $10,000. Westover drainage, $289. Just some striping and cleanup to do over there, then that project will be complete. And the front entrance road, $645,000. We'll be starting this winter on the Marina Dock and fuel dispenser to the tune of $143,000. The gate entry system has been ordered. It'll be about a 2 to 3 month process. It'll take about 30 days to get the equipment in, get all the hardware installed. Then there'll be a training period for the staff, and then a training period, obviously, for the residents. But the new system will be much more user-friendly. You'll be able to call in from any device, your computer, your handheld device, your telephone, any time of day, 365, 24 hours a day. If you prefer to call in, it'll go to a recording. That recording will go directly to the front gate. When your guest shows up, they just simply say, "I'm here to see Mr. Smith." We pull it up, hit the recording, and it'll be your voice letting your guest in. So it should be a much more efficient system, improve the security of Pecan. We will have license plate recognition and all sorts of bells and whistles to not only make a more secure community, but also much more efficient to get your guests so that you can manage your own guest account. Community Gardens, another project. This is a grassroots project that started many years ago, and now we're ready to start that. You'll see some fencing going up over by the soccer fields. And this spring, you'll have an opportunity to actually have a garden in the community gardens. So that's something, it's a grassroots effort from Jimmy Dale Garza and his group of people that are helping him out, and I think it's going to be a great amenity. Also, I think the chef is probably going to have a little garden of his own and maybe grow some herbs that we can use in the kitchen. Drainage animations, that's part of our continued drainage, looking at all of the drainage systems throughout Pecan Plantation. The animations is a continuation of the LiDAR data that we recently got. The animations will be able to show us rainfall amounts. We can pick out an area and we can say, okay, what would happen if 2-inch rain fell over a 3-hour period in this particular section of Pecan? The drainage animations will tell us exactly how much water will fall and where that water will go. And it's going to be much more specific when we get into these drainage projects to tell us on the front end how we need to engineer them. So that is in the works, and we should have those completed in the next 30 days. They come out of the Road and Drainage Fund. Any other questions, board members? If not, Mr. Treasurer, Mr. President, that concludes my financial report for this month.
Okay, thank you, Dick and Michael. We have no old business listed, so we move on to new business. We have several items of new business, and we'll start with the discussion of the golf pavilion that originated from the golf committee. And who would like to present that?
Bob, I'll do that. Is this on? Okay. Bob, the golf committee earlier this year put together a recommendation, a committee to look at adding a pavilion by the putting green down below. They want to put a pavilion out so that when we have large golf events, there will be enough space for golfers to have a place to meet. The 19th hole is limited in the space. The golf committee put this project together. Right now, they've collected $35,000 towards about $37,000 to build the pavilion. So this pavilion is entirely being financed by the golf committee and the golfers in Pecan Plantation. I think it's a great project that they've undertaken. At this point, I'm making a motion to have the PPLA, cede the land or give the golf committee the land so they can go ahead and build the pavilion. So I'm asking for, recommend that we approve the donation of that land to the golf committee for the golf pavilion.
And so would you, again, be specific about the motion?
So I'm making a motion for the PPLA to donate the land where the pavilion will sit so they can go ahead and build the pavilion.
Would you use the term dedicate the land instead of donate?
Dedicate, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Can we have a second? Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, we're not donating land or dedicate. We're authorizing them to build a pavilion on common ground that's owned by the PPOA Association.
One more thing. Once the pavilion is built, they have enough funds to
do the first 2 phases of that building. Once the building is finished, that will be turned over to the PPOA for further operation.
Do we anticipate that the golf committee will ultimately completely finance that whole project?
Well, through the first 2 phases, we haven't looked beyond the second phase. The third phase would be things like adding electric and kitchens and plumbing and things like that, and that's not been a part of this process. At the point that this pavilion is built, when we get through phase 2, it will be turned over to the PPOA, so at that point, whether the PPOA is going to fund those other activities or the golf committee funds that really hasn't been decided. I think the golf committee would be willing to cost share or pay for those ongoing improvements.
Okay. So we are asking, the motion is to authorize the construction of the first 2 phases of this project. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Item B is the approval of the election committee for 2018.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we approve the preliminary election committee for the year 2018. It consists, the judges are all, excuse me, are the ones I'm going to list. We are still needing volunteers to help with that. It's a project that requires a couple days and then we don't do anything on the election committee until we have another election. The first one that will be due will be in March of 2018, and we will need some help. There's a lot of people going to be required. We have at least 2 people per place, per every table, and all the individual items go to each of the tables and get tallied up by at least 2 people. So there is no possibility, or there's always a possibility, I guess, but we try to keep the possibility of any problems down to an absolute minimum. Chris Fodero has agreed to be the chief judge. She is the one in charge. Maureen Cotton, Bob Zensky, Clyde Wilson, and Lloyd Jones have agreed also to be judges. What we're going to be needing is people to help do the actual tallies. So with that political announcement done, I request that the board approve the preliminary election committee for 2018.
So the motion is to approve the preliminary committee. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And so I just, since we have it in front of us, I'd like to read the names. Maureen Cotton, Chris Fedoro, Kathy Peden, Keith Brown, Brad Peden, Bob Zimsky, Judy Zimsky, Clyde Wilson, Barbara Wilson, Tricia Hunter Farmer, Sid Tucker, Esther Schreiber, Dennis Rice Norris, and Nora Jones. Have I missed anybody? And Lloyd Jones. So I would echo Joe's request that we need more members to help out in this very important enterprise for us that we do each year, March elections. Any further additions, comments, questions? So hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, Joe. Item C is the skid steer, or as I know it, a Bobcat purchase. We need a motion. We'll jump into that. I'm sorry, I have the original agenda. Let me get the new one. Okie doke. So now we have 2 items of changing policy language. Item C is the clarification, the purpose and funding of the new capital reserve fund and the capital asset or capital fund. We have a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve DCR number PL-17-10-001, revision B.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. As a result of the limo agreement back in 2001, the board of directors at that time decided that they would like to set aside the initiation fees that for the lots between 3,000 and 4,500 to go into a new pot of money, a new fund for the purpose of new amenities or improving the amenities that we currently have that would accommodate our growth in our membership. Well, this year, we went over that $3,000 mark, and so this change in the policy is to define that pot of money and that fund, how it's maintained, what it's used for. So we basically, between myself and working with the financial committee, Bob Zinski, we basically rewrote Section 12 or portions of Section 12 and identified the four different funds we have, their uses, and how they should be managed. And so this DCR changes that policy to make all that happen.
Bob?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to just make note here and recognize Bob Zimsky and the Finance Committee for their yeoman work on this project, and also Roger Eads, who put in a lot of time to come away with this product, which looks good to me. Thank you, Bob.
Any other comments about this? This is very important for us to make sure that we are defining our funds properly and where the money goes.
Mr. President, I just have a couple of changes of typographical errors down at, well, right in the middle in 12.7.2, we've added what appears to be Article 7, RCM 11-4- something there before Section 10, but that same provision was not added further down in 12.7.3, the next to the last, or two lines up from the bottom of that. It says Section 10, but it doesn't add that Article 7 RCM 11-4- whatever. And then down at the bottom in 12.8.
Before you go on, Mary, do you have those changes of...
RCM is Mr. Mallory's initial. That's what his initial.
Oh, all right.
Is
Is that supposed to be Article 7, Section 10 then?
Yes, sir. That's what it's supposed to be.
Okay. And then with that same, should that also be Article 7, Section 10 down there in 12.7.3? Okay. And then in 12.8, at the end of the first line, the word proposes appears, and I think that's supposed to be purposes. And then in the very next line, at the end of the very next line, it says, the source of funds have not been dictated by, that probably should read dedicated, have not been dedicated by the bylaws or membership. And then one more change up at the top in 12.6. Right after the green words documented and the word increasing appears, it probably would read better if it said increased. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Vincent. Any other editorial or typographical changes that we've discovered? We can change the motion to move as amended.
Right, yes, I'll make the motion that we approve this Section 12 of our policy as amended.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Thank you very much for all your hard work. So we have a motion and a second for this new policy language. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next policy change will be for the camp process, and Bev, I think you have that.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the board approve PL-17-10-003, the Section 10 Capital Asset Policy.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Discussion?
Well, I want to ask Mr. Sprinkle if he has any changes to this policy before we...
Well, as a matter of fact, I do.
As a matter of fact, I thought you would. We're going to have you be policy reviewer.
Mr. President, I think it might be, I know that this language appears throughout a lot of our bylaws and policies, but maybe going forward we should start changing this. In 10.4.2, under type 1, it says must be approved by PPOA members. I would suggest we add must be approved by a simple majority of PPOA members.
Where is that now?
Under type 1, 10.4.2, under type 1, at the very end of the sentence it says must be approved by PPOA members. I would suggest that it read must be approved by a simple majority of PPOA members.
Or you could reference the bylaws, which requires the simple majority approval for membership.
I just think that as long as we're changing things, we might as well make it a little more clear.
I agree. What else, Judge Sprinkle?
And then there's one more place where the same language should be added. Under the paragraph that begins funding for type 1 projects, the second line, second sentence says type 1 projects costing more than $50,000 that had been approved by members. I would add in there approved by a simple majority of members. That's all the changes I have.
Well, yeah, that was easy fix. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I have a comment here? To add to what the judge just said, I think that projects that are over $50,000 and require additional funding from the members, it's going to require a two-thirds majority. Is that correct?
Well, that is correct, but that's not what he was addressing in terms of...
Well, it says here, it says what he's addressing costing more than $50,000 must be approved by a simple majority of PPOA. But if it's more than $50,000 and requires additional funding from the members, it requires two-thirds. Is that correct?
Well,
that is
an increase in assessment.
Right. We aren't dealing with assessments here.
I know, but if the membership's going to approve a project that's $50,000 or more with a simple majority.
Only if it increases their...
if it does not... It
may come out of the capital fund. It may come out of new capital fund. And as long as my understanding is, and that's part of the reason these funds were created, is that we need member approval for the projects. But to move forward, if it comes out of a fund that doesn't increase their dues, it doesn't need a two-thirds majority.
No, I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I'm saying if we're going to be that specific, we should add there that if it requires funding, it's going to need two-thirds. Or just leave it the way it is. I'd leave it the way it is.
I think this is any increase in dues or assessment requires a two-thirds majority, and this I don't think addresses that, Bob, because this is just saying that projects that are more than $50,000 require a simple majority. And only if an assessment increase is required would there be a two-thirds majority requirement. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, you are. But I see his point. I mean, we're specifying 50% or a simple majority for the project. But if that project did in fact require an assessment increase, it would also require us, and so it would be easier just to say approval by the membership. And then you can go back to the bylaws to see what that requirement is.
We initially...
I was just going to say, isn't the two-thirds requirement covered somewhere else?
Yes. And the simple majority is included also.
10.4.2 at the bottom.
Right, but I think the point Bob is making, the simple majority is also covered in the bylaws. And so you could say...
How about a vote of the members?
Well, you could say approval in accordance with the bylaws by the membership.
It does say funding may also be provided by a dues increase authorized by two-thirds of vote of the membership. And that's just kind of a blanket statement. Again, this policy is addressing mainly the CAMP process. We changed the definition of capital asset projects to coincide with the changes that were just approved by the board in Policy 12. If the board feels that this needs some minor adjustment in order to move forward, we can certainly do that. I think the concept, though, is that this policy has now been rewritten to tie into the policy that was just passed. It also provides better and more important clarification of the CAMP process, the capital asset modification process that is required for all projects that exceed 50,000 or if they're new projects. And it also now is required of any capital asset that exceeds the budgeted amount by $50,000. It also further enhances the general manager's role in at the startup of any proposal that comes from members that would come in front of the long-range planning committee and then to the board.
So, Vincent, I mean, by introducing a simple majority, then it does, by the question that, well, some do and some don't, depending on whether or not we have an assessment increase requirement.
I understand Bob's point. My point is that we're working on a ballot proposal to get membership approval of certain projects, and I just thought it might be helpful to make it clear that the projects themselves only have to be approved by a simple majority. The funding, additional assessment increase requests have to be approved by a two-thirds majority. I thought it might be helpful if we make that more clear here.
Mr. President, I think I have a compromise to what the judge is saying here. Instead of saying a simple majority, why don't we just say as appropriate? Must be approved as appropriate by PPOA. So it could be either way. I mean, that's just a thought.
And it includes the bylaws.
Yeah.
Type 1, what we're discussing, type 1 of the definition of a project is that capital projects that involve the development of assets that do not currently exist fall under type 1. Projects, and also projects costing more than $50,000 must be approved by a simple majority. So we're talking about the type of project that would have to go out to the voters for approval, and this only has to do for approval of the project per our bylaws. In terms of financing the project, as stated in Policy 12 that we just approved, the funding for that project could come from various sources. And if it comes from a dues increase to you, you have to, per our bylaws, approve that at two-thirds. But that would be two separate ballot issues, or it could be tied together. That would be a board's decision at that point in time.
Bob?
Yes, sir.
Speaking to Bob Kotai. Bob, what if we worded it to say must be approved by PPOA members
I was, why not by a vote
Per
of
the
the people?
bylaws. Per the appropriate bylaws.
I'm good with that.
All right.
You okay with that, Bev?
I'm fine with that.
Mr. President, I'd like to make one more comment, not to do with the language. I'll leave that up to the wordsmiths up here. But for those of you who are still awake, what we're talking about is a process for new projects. The board is sometimes accused of having our own agenda, that we're ramming things through here that nobody knows anything about. The camp process starts with somebody's idea for a new project. And these are all the steps that we have to go through. And if you look at the very bottom, it says Board of Directors approval. So until all those other steps are completed, and all those other committees and members and groups have signed off on it, including infrastructure and finance, once that's all done, then it comes to the board to approve. So the board doesn't jump over all those processes because we have so-called pet projects. These projects come from our community and from our committees, and once they've gone through all the work and jumped through all the hoops, then it comes to the board for approval. So I just wanted to clarify that for those of you who, it's hard to understand this. We've seen it 50 times. So for you, for the first time, it's a great process. Beverly and her group have done a great job in putting this together. I think it will make it clearer once we get into 2018 as we begin to use this process.
Thank you for that clarification, Ross.
Okay, so we do have agreement on the language change, and so, Bev, would you amend your motion, please?
I move the board approve policy, hang on a second, PL 17-10-003 as amended.
And do we have a second? A second approved?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion? And I agree with the compliment from Ross. A lot of work went into this process. We appreciate that, Bev. And long-range planning, right. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Here we go. I'll find it just a minute. And next one is, here we're finally back at the skid steer, right? And so 6E is the purchase of a piece of equipment. Who do we have? Roger Eads, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ACE 18-0301 for this will be the purchase of a 2017 John Deere 332G skid steer.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. And for those of you who don't know what a skid steer is like me, I know it as a bobcat. So I don't know why Daniel calls it a skid steer. We can maybe have him explain that. But Roger, do you have anything to...
Yes, I spent a few minutes talking about this. First, I want to ask the judge, is there any clearance I need to do on this? Anyway.
Looks good to me.
Okay. The current model that we have is a 2000 model. In fact, it's a 32 John Deere skid steer, and it was purchased used in 2009. And we have well in excess of 3,800 hours on it, and we constantly have problems with it. We've refurbished it. It's gotten to the point where we can't even use it. Daniel's very leery of anyone driving it because sometimes it'll shift into gear and take off on you. So he really doesn't want any new employees on there. It's becoming a safety issue. So the original we looked at, we asked him to get some, to go out there and shop the market, and he came up with some used ones. But at the time, as he indicated to us, the ones that he's even put on here are already gone. That's how fast these move. So he went out to over in Farmers Branch with a John Deere dealer over there, and the original suggested list price was $76,000. And through his magic, or whatever it is, he was able to get it down to $58,000, and with a trade-in of the one that we currently have. and you take off 8,000 from that, so it gets it down to 50,000. Now, one of the things we need to remember on a lot of these trade-ins, the only people that will even take the trade-in is a John Deere dealership. So we're kind of at a lot, it kind of limits what we can do if we want to get a trade-in. I just had a question for you. It says the trade-in has to be a skid steer in running and operating condition. Is that workable?
It is.
Okay.
They will drive it on the trailer.
All right.
It runs by itself.
Yeah, we'll just let it go to your farmer's branch all by itself. What we're doing here is, like I said, is list price of 58, and by the time that you trade in 50,000 and we have the sales tax, gets it down to 54,875, and what we had asked for originally and was approved was $50,000, and with a 10% contingency on that, that brings it right at the 55,000. Anyone have any questions regarding that?
I have more of a process question than this, because what was presented to finance was an ACE for the replacement, and 3 were provided. Does this have to have a new ACE in order, for our documentation? And I guess we're saying we can just use this old ACE, but now call it new? We don't have anything here that supports the one that you're wanting to buy other than the purchase here. It's not included in the ACE that was approved by the Finance Committee and came to the board.
Well, but this is a process issue. And
that's
so
what I'm asking.
yeah,
Do we need to have a new ACE that supports this?
Well, item number 4 was left open, so there were, and what I did, I just wrote that into the number 4 position. Yeah, Bob, do you have a solution here?
Yeah, I suggest we just modify the existing ACE, just like we did the other things, and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel, you want to speak to the piece of equipment, to how important it is, because it's a rather expensive item for us.
Just for some clarification for Bev there, the original request on that ACE was to shop the unit. As we knew, all the units on the original ACE would no longer be available. That's why we asked for the 50,000 plus the 10% contingency to go out and actually shop a unit that would be available at that time.
I've got one question, and maybe it's for Janice or Michael, but, I used to have a ranch, and when I go out and bought a tractor, I was tax exempt, and I didn't pay sales tax. This is like $4,000 worth of sales tax. So are we tax exempt?
So we're not tax exempt, is that what I heard you say, Janice? Not for sales tax, okay. Why don't you tell us what you use this thing for, Daniel?
This skid steer is used in just about every day, every operation we have out here with the roads department. It's also used in the stables operation for, removing waste and bringing new material into the stalls. We use it to mix all of our base. It's used in the brush operation. Very rarely does a day go by that we do not use this skid steer, and a lot of times it's used all day long. And the golf course also uses it quite often too when available.
And this is a wheeled unit, not tracked, is that correct?
Correct. I've elected to go with the wheeled unit. I've had quite a bit of correspondence with some folks that have gone with the track units, and they work good in a situation where you're on flat, level ground and you have other equipment available. The problem that they still haven't figured out with the track units, if you throw a track on that unit, you basically need another piece of equipment to get the track back on. So we don't want to be stuck out by ourselves having to wait on another piece of equipment to come help. And one example, a contractor that worked for us, he bought a new unit and it had 18 hours on it, and he threw a track on it. So it's very common for them to throw the track.
And this thing is transported from site to site on a flatbed. So,
correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I'd like to add, though, if you throw a track on your bulldozer, give me a call. I can put them back on.
Yeah, we can definitely get the
I've done
bulldozer
it
track.
myself.
We can definitely get the bulldozer track back on pretty easily. Skid steers, a little different. They don't have a good way to do it.
Okay, any questions or comments further on this? So we have a motion and a second to purchase a skid steer from Austin Turf and Tractor. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Item 7, recommendations requiring board action from the committees of management. We have none. Now, Michael, management report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder that our special membership meeting is this Saturday, commences at 11 a.m., so you can vote up until that point, and then the results of the EMS assessment pass-through will be announced as soon as the votes are tabulated. The holiday lighting contest, we have 18 people signed up this year, so that'll be judged this weekend by our first-year board members. Still have until tomorrow at 2 o'clock to sign up if you're so inclined. Please do so. If you have kids or grandkids around, December 10th, Sunday, Selfies with Santa. Santa will be in the clubhouse lobby on Sunday, December 10th from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. during the Sunday breakfast buffet.
Any of our employees serving as Santa this year?
Actually, a member and his wife are Santa and Mrs. Claus.
Oh, cool.
You mean there isn't a Santa Claus?
How do you disappoint the kids by asking? There are no kids.
One of the biggest days of the year is the Golf Pro Shop sale. Balloon sale takes place on December 12th from 3 to 6 p.m. Pop a balloon and your merchandise is deeply discounted all the way up to one free balloon. After the Golf Shop balloon sale, come on out for a member Christmas social. It's become the event of the year. There'll be over 300 people here, starting out with champagne and eggnog in the lobby, followed up by Christmas caroling by some of our residents here in the ballroom. 6 to 8 p.m., there'll be food stations throughout the club. The chef has designed a great menu for you, including carved meats, action stations, heavy hors d'oeuvres, and desserts. And then at 6:15, live music and dancing by the Master Cylinder Band. And actually, Daryl Davis, our graphics design editor, is in the band, so come and see Daryl. And wristbands, if purchased before the 11th, are only $15 and $20 day of the event. Special thank you to the Pecan Plantation Women's Club for all the wonderful decorations that you see throughout the clubhouse and throughout the association. They have really outdone themselves this year. They do that through a fundraiser, through the Christmas Tour of Homes. And they started the project actually with the decorations in August, and the committee of ladies worked tirelessly to see all the beautiful decorations that you see. They add more and more every year. So if you're so inclined, please support them on December 14th. Tour 7 beautiful homes decorated to the tilt, and then shop in Santa's workshop. If you've never been here, this whole room is set up with bakery items, Christmas gifts from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's 2 dining options, a brunch option and a dinner option. So it's a great opportunity to go out and see the wonderfully decorated homes and support the Women's Club for their very worthy causes. Christmas Eve this year, we're going to have a special brunch. Falls on Sunday, so Sunday, December 24th. We're going to enlarge our buffet from 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. to include sliced ham, numerous size, hot breakfast buffet with made-to-order omelets, and a waffle station, including pastries and dessert bar. Having a New Year's Eve dinner and dance this year, obviously on December 31st. Doors open at 7 p.m. Also to include prime rib, heavy hors d'oeuvres, salad bar, and desserts. 8:30 p.m. till midnight, music, dancing to the Anything That Goes band, and at midnight we'll have a champagne toast. And finally, I just want to thank all the residents who contribute to the Employee Christmas Fund. That fund is distributed based on tenure only, based on the amount of months that the employee has been employed. They get 1 point for every month of employment, up to 60, or 5 years as a max, 60 points. And we simply take the amount of money that was collected by all the residents, divide it by all the points that were accumulated, and you get a point value per month, and then that's multiplied times how many months you've been here, and that determines how much the bonus amount will be to the employees. So we will pass that out during our annual recognition celebration this Sunday, and in addition to our special recognition awards, and also our Employee of the Year, which I will announce next month. And Mr. President, that concludes my management report for this month.
Thank you, Michael. I'd like to just make another comment about management staff. I know they're working hard getting ready for the holidays, but I'd like to recognize that their attendance here at this board meeting. We appreciate your attendance at the board meeting. For any of the members who might have a question for you, and to respond to any questions that the board members have during the meeting. So I just want you to know that your presence is noted, and we appreciate it. I'd also like to note that with some, I don't know, personal pride, I have been working in the Crime Watch program in Pecan, which means that when I can't sleep at night, I get in my car and put my magnetic signs on the side and go drive around. And I note that many of our homes remain lit all night. So I appreciate that. It's a shame that I'm the only one that sees it. But I did notice, Darrell, that our back sign is still out, and I wonder when we're going to get that taken care of.
It's been out day before yesterday. We were able to get it back up, but went out again today, and we were not able to get it to come back up. We called for service. They should be out tomorrow.
Okay, well, I appreciate that you're right on top of it, because that's an important part of the way we communicate with our members. So again, I'd like to wish everyone on the board and those of you that are here today a very happy holiday. Look forward to seeing you at the Christmas activities and the New Year's Eve event. And seeing no other business, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.